What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1425 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. And Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Today, to answer my many questions about the Canadian Podcast Awards, is John Leschinski and Jennifer Lanktree. How did I do with those last names?
Terrific.
Okay, I was not too worried about Lanktree. I don't know how to butcher that even if I tried, but Leschinski, I'm like, is that a hard ch? Do I go with the sh? But it's Leschinski.
Yep, you got it.
All right, nice to meet you two.
Yeah,
Nice to
you
meet
as
you too.
well. Almost 1,500 episodes. That's quite a feat.
You should have held out for number 1,500. It's going to be a big milestone. So but you got a kind of a round number, 1425.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Jen, if you want like another tattoo, you could get 1425 somewhere, and that could commemorate your Toronto Mike debut.
Sounds good.
All right, I want to know who you are. Like this is maybe the least I've ever known about anybody in the basement here. Let me start with you, John. Again, we're going to talk about the Canadian Podcast Awards, because on this program, I've asked many questions aloud. Al Grego's been on, who's won these awards, and we've chatted about what are they, what do they mean, and then, of course, PodCamp 20... I'm reading your shirt. PodCamp Toronto is coming up, and I want to find out what that's about, and I want to have a little podcast discussion. But, John, who the heck are you? Just give us a little bio.
Well, I'm a graphic designer and web developer here in Toronto. I'm originally from the Fort Frances, which is up near Thunder Bay. Made the move down here quite a few years ago, and I've been involved in the podcasting community since pretty much the get-go. So I've been involved in PodCamp London, I've attended PodCamp Michigan, and then I joined the PodCamp Toronto board, and eventually I was the one left over to run it. And from there, we started the Canadian Podcast Awards.
Okay, so you've got in early on the podcast game. So what do you call early? I'm just curious. Like, if you had to spit a calendar year at me, what year are you sort of diving into the world of podcasting?
Well, it would have been before I moved to Toronto, so it was probably like the first or second year of podcasting that was like a thing.
Okay, so because I always think, so I remember producing the Humble and Fred podcast in December 2006, and fairly not too long before that, podcasts were added to iTunes. So like this was the big moment, and I remember I would listen to like a Ricky Gervais podcast and some of these early birds. So are you in on it like around that time?
Well, I don't know if this helps the listeners figure it out, but the podcast that I first got interested in was like Keith and the Girl, which is a very early podcast in the podcast ecosystem. And there was the podcast ranking list? What was it that everyone was fighting over back then?
Oh, we always need something to fight over.
Yeah, I forget what it was called, and you would vote for.
Yeah, you would have your listeners vote on which is the top podcast, and every
Podcast
month it would
Alley.
Podcast Alley.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're an OG here. Okay. Now, Jennifer, who the heck are you? What's going on? I love your hair. I told you got like purple green hair. Is that natural? What's going
I'm
on
part
there?
mermaid, but no, I just did it a couple years ago. It was something fun for the pandemic, and it's kind of stayed since then.
Part of your brand now.
Yeah.
And and Lanktree, like what is the root of Lanktree? Is that some old British term or something? Like is that a British name? Do you know?
I believe it's Scottish, but it's actually my ex-husband's last name, and I just never bothered. Once you have everything in your name, it's kind of a pain. So
and once you're a Lanktree, you're forever a Lanktree. Like, why would you change that? Like,
Yeah.
that is the greatest last name I've ever heard. I mean, Leschinski and me, we're like, we wish we were Lanktrees. Okay, so ex-husband. So, okay, so you're not, you weren't born a Lanktree.
No, my maiden name is Down, and that's from
That's not
England.
bad.
So it's okay, but it led to some teasing.
You could have kept
as
a hyphen,
kid.
like down Lanktree. Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jennifer, who the heck are you when you get into the podcasting world?
So I am also an early adopter of podcast and the podcasting community. I'm not a podcaster myself, but I've always been involved in meetups, and I was in at around 2006 as well, listening to Keith and the Girl and the Harry Potter podcast.
I'm missing out on Keith and the Girl.
time.
What was Keith and the Girl about?
It was a daily podcast where they would just kind of talk about their lives as party clowns. Like they would do children's entertainment and
it was a
party
couple
clowns.
cast. It was one of like the first couple caps, like Dawn and Drew style.
Where
era.
was it out of? Like
New
New York
York.
City.
Okay, it's funny. New York. Okay, so you seen that documentary? You might have seen the documentary Capturing the Freedmans. Okay, so this is one of the great documentaries. Okay, we're going back a little bit here. I don't know how far back am I going. I can't tell anymore. 20 years at least. But Capturing the Freedmans started out as a documentary about like children's entertainers in, I think, in New York, and they had this one guy who was like the leading clown or whatever. And then it turned out he was a freedman. I can't remember his first name right now, but it turned out like there's a whole like family dysfunction going on they discovered, and that became the documentary instead. So I sort of revisit this once in a while, this documentary. So I feel like I know the top, birthday clown in New York. That's my connection here. Okay, so Keith and the Girl. Are they still recording?
They are actually, yeah. They did 5 days a week for a long time. They were one of the first podcasts.
What episode are they on? Episode 12,000?
They're in the 2000s. What, maybe around?
No, I think probably more than that now. But
Okay.
They go on and off of doing it from weekly to up to 5 days a week.
Since the pandemic, they sort of cut their episode count down, but.
See, we're going to have a great, like, anything's on the board here podcasting wise, but I personally would prefer that Keith and the Girl be Toronto people. Like, my craving for those kind of, like, I like it when, we got stuck on the 401 and, and it's like I really dig local references I can relate to. Like I have one of my pet peeves is all these big podcasts people are into, they're so American.
Yeah.
Like I'm not anti-American, but I'm very pro-Canadian. I really do like a homegrown podcast. So maybe Keith and the Girl need to relocate.
They've come to Canada to do a show actually over at TMU. They set up a little show over there at the Imperial Pub and stuff. So they've been to Canada.
They'll do road trips.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jennifer, you said you don't actually podcast yourself. You're just very involved in the space.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a community builder. I like bringing people together and planning events around it.
It's true. We've never crossed paths. That's because no community wants me. I'm the outsider. But John, do you podcast yourself? I forgot to ask you.
No, I'm also a community builder. I got involved in the space because of my web development and design background. I saw a need for, better websites, better design around these events. So I lended my hand in there and sort of just fell into the space in there.
And you're now technically you're a community builder yourself.
Yep.
So you and Jennifer. So were you two fast friends? You just realized you were both you had a lot in common. What's your relationship like?
Well, we met through the Keith and the Girl podcast.
Yeah, so we
Sorry to bring it back to them.
met at a meetup.
This is the Keith and the Girl episode. I'm going to rename it. This is all about Keith and the Girl. Okay. So
That's how we met. We went. We both attended a Keith and the Girl meetup, and we met there. And then eventually, a couple of years later, she got divorced, and I was there to scoop her up.
Okay, so this is what I was kind of hinting at, but I can't come right out. I was wondering, is there a romantic involvement between John and Jennifer here?
Yes.
Yeah, we've been together for 13 years.
See, I didn't know that, and okay, now I realize she became a free agent, and you signed her up, and look at you. Okay, so I'm trying to think. Okay, so Lanktree, right? I almost called you Lanktree. I think we could change that a little bit here, but
I know once that came out, it was a little bit jarring when I would see it every time. Like, what? Oh, it doesn't say my name.
Okay, John and Jen are a couple. Okay, this is answering a lot of my questions here now. So let us dive into. I mentioned that the Canadian Podcast Awards comes up on the show, but they didn't really start coming up. Every time Al Grego comes on, he's come on like professionally because he produces shows for Moneris, and Moneris would sponsor this program. But he'd also come on as Al Grego because he's a great FOTM, which means friend of Toronto Mike. John and Jennifer, you're now FOTMs.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So there's in fact, there's another, you mentioned TMU because we're going to talk later about PodCamp, but you're involved now in another TMU, the Toronto Mike Universe. So a couple of TMUs for you here. So Al would come on and he'd be like, yeah, I won an award. Also, I produced a show for Larry Fedoruk that would won an award. Yep. And it's like, all these people are winning these awards. And then I'm like, I don't think I was nominated. And then I was like, well, what does this mean? Like, anyone can just one day wake up and say, I'm starting the Bonanza Podcast Awards, and this is a big deal. And then what does it mean if you don't understand, what it's all about? And then I got nominated. I got nominated for 2 Canadian Podcast Awards. Outstanding Personal Series and Outstanding News and Current Affairs Series. So now I'm nominated. So now I'm like, I'm going to just make a bunch of noise about being nominated, even though I don't know what these things are, like who's behind them, what it means. I got people like FOTMs like Gene Velitis telling me some guy in his North York basement's just pulling this out his ass. And I'm like, well, we don't know that, Gene. Let me see if I can get answers to these questions. So now, John, Jennifer, please tell me about the Canadian Podcast Awards. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll just first say it's not from our basement. We live in a second-story walk-up.
But you're in a basement right now. Like, to me, that's not an insult to say this comes out of a basement. A basement in Toronto means you're a multimillionaire. What's going on there? Okay, go on, John.
No, I think in a few years ago, so this will be our 6th year that we just wrapped up, we saw a need for, some sort of recognition system for Canadian content creators, especially with, how big the American scene is. A lot of us can get drowned out. So along with PodCamp Toronto, we decided to put together an award system that's industry focused. So you have to be a Canadian and a podcast creator or involved in the podcast creating industry in Canada to participate, to hopefully uplift Canadian content so that it gets more recognition outside of Canada and within Canada, and to hopefully bring together Canadian podcasters.
Okay, so far I like what I hear, because you're 100% right that it is tough to cut through the noise coming from south of the border. I mean, we're inundated with Smartless signed this deal and Joe Rogan signed that deal, and we're just completely inundated with these high-budgeted, big-league podcasts coming out from the United States. It's very difficult to cut through the noise, right, Jennifer?
Yes. So that's why we put this together. We want to be able to help people network together, understand that it does take a community to raise up everyone. It's been really hard bringing people together at first, but the last couple of years, we've really noticed an uptick in people wanting to get involved, letting other people know about the awards, and that's our main thing. We just want to bring people together.
Okay, so your motivation here is to raise awareness that there are good podcasts being produced in our very own country.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and there's a lot of great podcasts that we recognize every year. I wouldn't say there's any winners that we wouldn't stand behind as being great podcasts in Canada. So if you want to check out a new Canadian podcast, head over to our website at canpodawards.ca to find someone that's Canadian that you can listen to that maybe is in your backyard.
Okay, let's get specific here. Okay, so how are the nominees determined? Like, go in the weeds with me here. Can anybody just go to your website and then say, hey, I'm going to nominate Humble and Fred for Best Comedy Podcasts? Like, how exactly does it work?
No, so to sign up, you have to be Canadian and work in the industry. So that's the first barrier.
Well, the industry being podcasting, right?
Yep.
Okay, so of course you wouldn't want to be nominated if you didn't have a podcast.
Yep.
Okay.
So then you would nominate yourself and other podcasts that you know and work with in the various categories. And then the podcasts with the most nominations make it into the next cut. So it's kind of like a round robin.
So you can nominate any Canadian podcaster. Yep. But you have to be a podcaster to nominate. You can't just be a listener.
Yes, they're industry
So you
awards.
two can't nominate anybody because you don't have a podcast.
You have to work in the Canadian podcasting industry.
Right.
So when you sign up to be a member, you select which category you belong to and all the information
production
like that.
or stuff like that. All
Okay,
of it counts.
So you sign up and now you have a login. What's the URL again for this website?
canpodawards.ca.
Okay, canpodawards.ca. you've now got a login, and you can then you can nominate for all the categories. You can nominate podcasts that you think are worthy of nomination.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever podcast categories that they fit in, their tags, like according to your iTunes tags and things like that.
Yeah, so that's how we determine what categories they fit in, is with self-identified categories.
Okay, so now I realize I've been hurting myself because I never tell people to nominate me for a Canadian Podcast Award. So I feel like popular shows are gonna. I know Al does this. They're gonna be like not stuff the ballot box, but encouraging anyone who can get a login to nominate your show so that you can make that noise, like that PR move I did when I wrote a blog entry and I said several times. I said, Toronto Mic'd is nominated for Canadian Podcast Awards, and I got so many congratulations. I said I'm nominated for Outstanding Personal Series and Outstanding News and Current Affairs Series, and I got so many congratulations. People don't really care what it means; they just really are happy for you that you've been recognized by any organization as having a decent podcast.
Yeah, and it's a great way to promote yourself as well. You can say I was nominated for an award, and that might hold some weight with sponsors or other podcasters that you want to have come on your show, or celebrities.
Yeah,
it really helps. And this year we've seen a lot of our winners break into the top 100 of iTunes charts because of the awards.
So you've noticed a bump.
Oh yeah,
a post award bump. It's like after the Grammys when you find out, Joni Mitchell's streams went up, 1,600%.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, look at that. Okay, so 6 years in, you said, for the Canadian Podcast Awards?
Yep.
Okay, why the hell haven't I won yet? Is it because I'm not getting the listenership to stuff the ballot box?
I guess kind of, yeah. 'Cause it is very participation based. So you need to have people come vote for you who are in the industry. And we see, usually the people that win are the people who have the most connections with it in their circles. So and podcasts with a lot of people that work on them as well have a good chance.
Well, that's a good point too, because these unwashed normies are no good to me, right? It's no, it's that's why I get, Al, you have a vote, and Al does vote because Al does legitimately love Toronto Mike. And have you guys met Al Grego?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. A few times.
Jennifer doesn't remember him. He's a cuddly one, Jennifer. So if you saw a cuddly looking dude, not that he's little, but if you see a cuddly dude, that's Al Grego. John, when did you encounter FOTM Al Grego?
Probably would have been through a PodCamp, one of the PodCamps. I think we've met him through PodCamp.
He walks the walk, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to help build the community, and I'm all focused on the FOTMs. I feel like I need to be more involved in these things. So we are going to, at some point very soon, we are going to talk about PodCamp Toronto. Is that a free I know you call it an unconference, but that's so, cheeseball. But it's free, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pay what you can. You can certainly pay nothing for it, but it's
I'm just like Homer Simpson. Do you remember the substitute teacher episode of The Simpsons? One of my favorite episodes. And they went to the museum, and it's pay what you can. And Homer was so excited; it was free.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bergstrom, of course, coughs up a $20 bill or something like that. But it says pay what you can, and that equals free to Homer Simpson, right?
Yeah, it equals free to a lot of people.
All right. Okay, so how long you two been dating?
13 years.
Okay, so it was love at first podcast, essentially here.
Pretty much.
Okay, I like to hear these love stories that come out of the podcasting industry. That's you guys could have a podcast just on that premise alone, I think. But okay, then you could see how it is from the other side, right? Because you can't learn more about an industry by actually being one of them, right? Have you considered a podcast?
It's a lot of work. I'm sure, as you know. And
you're following Kathleen Wynne, okay? I just want you to know the 25th premier of this fine province was sitting right in the John seat there last episode.
Yeah,
so.
I'm not a runner, so I don't have that kind of energy.
You should have given her 14.25.
You know what? She was happy to get 14.24. You let the chips fall where they may. Okay, so just get a few 101 nuts and bolts about PodCamp, and then we'll go into it in more detail later. But when is it?
February 24th and 25th, and it is a pay what you can /free event. It's completely donor and sponsor funded. We want to make it accessible for everyone. Students up to retirees attend each year, and we have people from all across the industry, hobbyists to professionals.
Yep. And
okay.
It'll be at George Brown College this year at the School of Media and Performing Arts.
Is that by Chorus Key? Is that the one near Sugar Beach, or is
It's 230 Richmond.
Okay, because they're all over the place.
East.
Okay,
Yeah,
'cause they have
Richmond
that
Street
complex
East.
there by the lake.
Yeah,
But
it's not the lake one. It's the one downtown St. James campus.
Okay, so people need to register for this.
Yep, the registration will be open this weekend. And the schedule will be out this weekend as well.
Okay, and you want to spit out the URL that people can go to this weekend to register for PodCamp Toronto, a free 2-day event known as an unconference.
Yep, it is podcamptoronto.com.
Okay, nice and easy. Podcamptoronto.com. Okay, so I'm now naturally curious in exploring a little further the difference between podcasting here in Canada and in the United States. I talked about that, wall of noise we have to cut through. Now, I will say I focus on GTA stuff, so I think that's maybe a result. So I'm not trying to, I know many podcasters here in Canada, of course, want, a heavy presence in Texas or California and stuff, because that's where all the people are, which I chose a different route. But maybe start with you, John, but why do we hear about all this money flying around in the United States for podcasting when I don't quite see even a 10%, because we're 10% of the populace, I don't quite see the equivalent here. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places. What do you say about the difference between podcasting in the United States and here in Canada?
Yeah, I don't know really what the difference is. Obviously, the market's bigger there, so they have a lot more companies there willing to invest in the ecospace. But here, it seems like it's really difficult to get even sponsors for shows. I mean, you have a lot of sponsors, and it's kind of crazy. It's a lot. And for even our events that we run, it's really pulling teeth to try and get sponsors to support our events. And it's not like there's no value in these events. You're connecting directly with the industry and with people who are, potential consumers of your product. So, this year we have great sponsors like Shure and Podstars coming on board to help us.
What is Podstars?
I
saw the logo on the bottom of the website. But.
Yeah, they connect you with guests that you might want to have on your show, like celebrities like Tim Russ from Star Trek Voyager, or
and professionals across different.
Do you pay for that? Because I've never ever done this.
They do have some. You can access them for free, but then they do have other community programs that you pay monthly to access different guests.
Okay, so we're gonna bounce around and we will come back because I'm still exploring this Canada versus US thing, and the sponsorship I want to speak to too. But it seems like, and I mean this is obvious, but until COVID, I had a rule you had to be in the basement, or I didn't want to do it. This was simply to make sure I was satisfied. I just for my own personal pleasure, because it's all about me over here. But I did put my name in the title of the show, so I feel like it's okay. It's all about me. But then COVID hit. And a bunch of episodes were done remotely. And then I started, I had a list of people who just geographically were never here. From Kish to Brother Bill. I had this list. And then I'm I can knock off this list now because I'm going to do some remotes. And then now I do kind of a mixture. I'd say the majority of episodes are in the basement. But I still will. I just had Pamela Wallen on and we did a Zoom. And I will still do, a remote conversation. I'm going to do one with Alfie Zappacosta because the man composed the Pizza Nova jingle. That's a big deal. I know you two are excited. I can tell. It's where am I? Okay, we're going to talk about Tears Are Not Enough, which was recorded probably before your birth, but they probably are these programs where they're hey, if you want to Zoom with who am I going to pick on here? If you want to Zoom with David Lee Roth or whatever, we can broker that where David Lee Roth will jump on a 30-minute Zoom with you. But it just seems that's nice and all because you'll get a big bump from having David Lee Roth. But it just seems, I don't know why, it feels it taints the whole the whole experience. It's this is just oh, they're handing you David Lee Roth on a platter to have a 30-minute Zoom. I don't know. Am I overthinking it? Is it all about the name recognition? Is that the only way to move the needle here?
I think that is obviously going to help bring in people initially, but even if you're able yourself to get a guest, if you don't make the interview what it could be, it's going to fall flat anyway. So maybe you just need help sourcing the people, but you have those deep down questions you've always wanted to ask.
Oh, sure. Diamond Dave. Now I don't know why I randomly just thought who's a U.S. celebrity who might be available? And I was thinking of David Lee Roth. Isn't it just you just randomly pull a name? But now I want to talk to David Lee Roth.
Well, maybe hit up Podstars and they can help you out.
Okay, I got to talk to Podstars here. Hook me up. I do know a lot with remotes. That's where I was going. With remotes, it opened it up for this possibility. I think if you had to have people in your basement, then you're never probably going to get David Lee Roth on your podcast. But if you are open to these remote conversations, there's a whole world of people who will probably maybe jump on a Zoom with you for 30 minutes instead of, making the trek to your basement for 90.
Yeah, 100%. And these, with the economy the way it is, these people need to be paid for appearances as well. So
okay, let's
that's
talk about
the
that.
easiest way to get on the show.
Okay, so are there people who will come on your podcast for a fee? I don't want to sound naive, but I literally have never been asked for a penny. So
100% people will be paid to come on shows. Usually celebrities, they'll have an appearance fee for even showing up to open a pizza joint or something. They'll have an appearance fee for a podcast.
Okay, so Jennifer, what kind of dollars? If I want a share on my podcast, what kind of dollars? I know you don't have an answer, but it's a rhetorical question, I suppose. But I guess this is another discussion. I don't know why I'm sound like I'm a naive child here as I listen to myself in the headphones, but that seems to taint the whole thing too. It's like, you got a great guest, but you cut him a check. I don't know why I'm so dismayed. It's like finding out something about Santa Claus or something. I'm all dismayed.
Yeah, and not to I don't know, sound combative or something, but
Let's fight.
No, but you're accepting sponsor money, so is that tainting it? You're not doing it purely
to me,
just for yourself.
You're
or
right. No, I sold out.
So these people, it's their career, and you're asking for their knowledge, perhaps, or something. And certainly the same people, we work with some people who definitely accept appearance fees, but when they work with us, we're able to offer them something else, and they don't take an appearance fee, So even as a podcaster, maybe you do pay for that initial contact with someone, but then you develop a rapport, or they see, actually this person is advertising
they enjoyed
my stuff.
It or something.
Yeah. And everything is reciprocal nowadays. So if you're not getting something out of it, maybe you need to be given monetary compensation.
See this, now you open my eyes. Okay, so now let's face it, there are Canadian podcasters who will have a big name guest. They don't need to disclose it, obviously. There's no law that says you must disclose this, I'm assuming. But they paid for the appearance. This is happening in our country.
Yeah, and I think it's been happening.
I know. I just want to spell it out here.
It's been happening for a long time.
How much do I owe you guys? Oh, I just realized I will compensate you, okay? Because now I'm staring at the swag in front of you. So let me just tell you that there's no cash coming your way. I'm very sorry. But maybe you could sell your Palma Pasta lasagna. Do you guys like Italian food?
We love Italian food, especially from Palma Pasta.
Okay, look, you're good at this. Now, are you two cohabitating? Is that a personal question?
Yes, we are for almost 13 years.
Okay. So that just tells me that you guys share the same freezer.
Yeah, you only have to give us one lasagna.
Are either of you two vegan? I should have asked that before.
Not vegan, no. I am vegetarian.
Oh, so tell me, I used to know the answer, but is the difference eggs and things like that?
Kind of, and I'm very light vegetarian. I just don't eat actual meat because it kind of sketches me out a bit. So it's not really any moral thing or anything like that. So I'll eat gravy or random things. It's not strict.
So here's the problem, and I know you came a long way to be here, but in my freezer upstairs, I actually only have right now a meat lasagna from Palma Pasta, and I can get you a vegetarian. Absolutely can get you a vegetarian. Maybe I meet you I bike over to TMU, or I bike over to PodCamp. Sometime when you're kind of closer to the West End, I bike you a vegetarian lasagna. So you have an option here. You can leave. This is like Monty Hall. Let's make a deal. You can leave my place today with a meat lasagna from Palma Pasta, which will be delicious for John, but it'll take him several meals to take that down. Or I promise you I can bike to you a vegetarian lasagna at a later date. These are your options. And you don't even have to answer it till the end.
We would love to accept a meat one.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I feel terrible that I didn't confirm with you.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Anything from Palmas is great.
All right. Does anyone on this episode drink beer? It's okay if you don't. Look, it's okay. That's the thing. I don't want any fakery.
We love Great Lakes Brewery too, though.
Yeah, when they came up with that news beer.
Yeah,
they
did that.
Yes.
I was at that launch party.
Yeah, so were we.
Yeah.
I was there.
You were recording in the corner. Yeah.
Right. That's why we didn't talk to you, because you were recording.
So you were there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think how we never crossed paths, but we actually did. Why didn't you come up and introduce
You're
yourself?
recording.
It's true, but I did it 3 hours that day or something. Okay. So I was invited by Chorus to record at GLB Brew Pub, And that was great, except they pretty much like the poor Amanda Capito and everything that was behind that got let go, and they went in a whole different direction since then. Even though that was probably less than a year ago we did that. I can't remember now. But
everyone's being laid off now, so it's not a great time for it.
And that's more podcasters, right?
I guess, yeah.
Have you noticed that? Like, I know we mentioned Gene Velitis earlier, but a lot of and I do produce a show for Humble and Fred, but a lot of the broadcasters we used to listen to on the radio have pivoted to podcasting because they don't need a terrestrial radio signal to podcast.
Yeah, it's an open medium. It's anyone can do it if they have the time and the resources to do it. It doesn't take much. You just have to be able to produce compelling content if you want to keep it going and make a living doing it. But
do you need a good voice, John? Yeah,
not my voice.
Okay, you say that, now I'm sad because I think you and I have similar equivalent voices. Well, Jennifer, John and I, we can podcast even though we don't sound like Jesse and Gene, right?
Well, I would say that you definitely have a voice for podcasting. Is that right? But John, I don't know if as much.
My voice is garbage, she's saying. It's trash.
Well, you can add a little compression maybe, and then okay, that's interesting that Jen would put you under the bus like that. Okay, so I think John's got a fine voice for podcasting, and his content is king, right?
Well, yeah, and that actually really is true. Like he said, you do have to have a bit of a voice, but I think if you, at least the production and everything else is good as well, it's not really about the voice itself necessarily. It's what the voice is saying.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. And maybe one day I'm going to win one of these Canadian Podcast Awards. Come on, listenership. We got to stuff that ballot box and make it happen. Oh, yeah. So to finish that thread, and then I'm going to come back to the gifts I have for you because I have more. But after the nominations are down to like 5, as I recall, you come down to the final 5, then anyone with a login can vote for their favorite of the 5 in all the categories that you have.
Yep, 100%. They can go log in and vote for each one in each category, and the ones that get the most votes.
First past the post. So it is, most votes wins. Have you ever had a tie?
No,
Not
I don't
yet,
think so.
no.
Has it been close? Like, have you had one of those, like, this person won by 2 votes?
Yeah, there are, quite often.
Like 1 vote separates them.
What do you do in the event of a tie?
I guess one of us would decide the winning vote, or
do
we
you
would
flip
wait
a coin?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. It's never really come up. I don't know. It's obviously probable, but it just really hasn't come up.
Oh, and here's another thing. So you unveil it all, like it's a live stream, right? On YouTube, I suppose. Yep. And in advance, all nominees are asked to like submit like a acceptance speech. So you've had hundreds of acceptance speeches, and then you just drop in the so if you want to know how the sausage is made, when people are saying, "Thank you for this award. What an honor it was to receive this from my peers. Thank you, thank you, thank you." They're like saying that before they know they won.
Yeah, so I have a folder full of lies.
Yeah, you've got a recording of me in there somewhere, like thanking the Academy for my awards I never won. Maybe I should edit that out in post. We'll get rid of that, of course. Let people guess if I won or not. Okay. I have also for you two, I have a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home.
To measure our coffins, or?
Yeah, be creative. I feel like you'll go first, Jen. Make sure we take care of John at Ridley Funeral Home. Okay.
Definitely.
By the way, speaking of podcasts, Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home has his own podcast, and it's charming AF. It's called Life's Undertaking, and people can find it wherever you find podcasts. And I love Brad Jones's podcast.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of that starting up again. So in the early days of podcasting, we saw people using podcasts as a way to, promote something else they were doing. With Keith Nagurl was, she was a singer and he was a stand-up comedian, and they did clowning as like a side gig. And now we're seeing more things happening where, people like Ridley's Funeral Home is doing a podcast to promote their business. Right. It's sort of a marketing channel we're seeing people using to promote something else that they're doing that actually will make them a living.
Preach it to the choir here. And just before we get back to the difference of podcasting in Canada and the United States, I would also recommend everybody listening subscribe to the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada. Whether you manage your own investment plans or already work with a trusted financial advisor, the Advantaged Investor provides the engaging wealth management information you value as you pursue your most important goals. So now you've shouted out a couple of podcasts beyond Toronto Mic'd. I'm going to revisit the Canada versus US. You talked about how difficult it is to get sponsors. Why do you think in this country, because I feel like there are sponsors here who would happily like sponsor a big American production, but here in Canada, we're producing good content and it's homegrown and much of it is independent. Why are sponsors so hesitant to support it financially?
Yeah, I don't know, because I guess it'd be, for me, the same question as, why aren't there more startups here? Why isn't there, a bigger tech hub here like Silicon Valley in the States? Like, it's just, I don't know if there's that sense of innovation or like industry here around this sort of stuff. Yeah.
And do you think there's a bit of a brain drain? Like, we often talk about, what is it? They canceled the Avro and all these like really bright minds went to like Houston and worked on putting a man on the moon, essentially. Like they worked for NASA. And I always think, okay, yeah, the big tech, I know we have a Waterloo hub and everything, and there's a bit of a Silicon Valley North, but primarily you go to California, like Led Zeppelin said, right?
Yeah, and that is probably part of it as well, and I think we have very similar geography. In Europe, they have their own stuff, and in other parts of the world, They have their own stuff, but we're so close to the States. Our population is, so close to the border. It's hard
and we're all watching the same shit. Like we have the same cultural touch points.
Yeah, and the only thing, really separating us in the media is the CRTC and CanCon regulations.
Okay, none of which applies to podcasting.
No, not yet.
Okay, now I'm going to ask my next big question, which is why is there no, and I know you might not have answers here, but we're just chatting. Why is it that I cannot play Led Zeppelin's Going to California without risking, being deplatformed because there's no way to license music for a podcast like there is for radio.
Yeah, there's no easy way to do it. I think there are a few avenues to do it. I know James Crinlin has a guide on podnews.net that talks about licensing music, but again, they might not see enough revenue from it. Like, what would you be willing to pay to be able to play that song?
Well, there's so SOCAN exists for. Here's an interesting tie-in. So Ridley Funeral Home can play, like if your favorite song is Led Zeppelin's Going to California, they can play it at a funeral because they pay this SOCAN thing, similar to radio. Like the reason radio can play it is because of they pay the SOCAN licensing fee. It feels like there should be, and I'll make up numbers right now, but if they said, okay, for $250 a year, you can play licensed songs on your podcast. I feel like many people, including me, would happily, fork over that as a business expense so that when I have a guest on who talks about how much they love Led Zeppelin's Going to California, I can play a little bit of it.
Yeah, and that would make sense, but I kind of doubt it would be $250. I think
so that's the problem. Like, what would that be? Like, right. So what is the number where it becomes like, you just, an independent podcaster simply can't cough it up?
Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of the charges come like per listen or whatnot. So you'd have to track that and submit that sort of information.
Yeah, but radio doesn't have that. And I know the difference, obviously. There's no on-demand listening to the radio, and I get the key difference. But I just wish, and I know I've had this chat with Alan Cross and Robbie J with the ongoing history of new music where they've decided they can play like 20 seconds and they're going to like cross their fingers. But they're basing it on nothing.
Yeah, and we see a lot of people doing that. Like
fair use.
Yeah, we've seen podcasters, use licensed song as like their intro music for their show, and we've seen them had to go back and edit all of that out because they got a notice saying you're not supposed to be doing this.
Well, I risk it every episode. Not the opening theme, that was an original by Ill Vibe, local rapper producer, but the closing theme to this very podcast. Even though these songwriters and the artists love the fact I play it every episode, but the algorithm doesn't know that or care about that. And I could get knocked for that. I don't have the legal right to play Lowest of the Lows, Rosie and Gray on this episode.
Yeah, and we saw like when people were adding on to Spotify, we saw a lot more takedown notices coming out of that because of their algorithm picking up that these songs were being played.
Right. So, and that's important to like, just to be clear here that the great risk is that you get deplatformed by Spotify. Like Spotify can simply just remove your show from their app.
Yeah. Yeah. But luckily there's other apps out there to listen to podcasts on. Spotify isn't the only one. It's one of the big ones, but
Well, look, I'm banking on it. Okay, John. Listen, there'll be that day where I just Toronto Mic'd available everywhere except Spotify. What is your Jen? What's your Jen? Can I call you Jen?
Sure.
What is your podcast app of choice? Like if you for your personal listening?
I just listen through the Apple Podcast app. I'm not fussy, but I'll complain about it every
because you're an iPhone user.
Yeah.
So it came with the phone and it works and you're happy.
Yeah, it's just the thing that I had since it started. So I'm not big on change.
That's a good answer there. A lot of people use Apple Podcasts. What about you, John?
I use Spotify only because at my previous job, I was commuting between a Windows machine at work and I had a Mac at home. So I needed a way to, be able to cross-platform my music and podcast listening.
So you're a happy Spotify. So you won't be able to hear Toronto Mike when I get deplatformed. That's disappointing to me here.
Well,
I'll play it for him.
I'll unsubscribe to them when that happens.
Has either of you ever heard an episode of Toronto Mike? Be honest.
Yeah.
I have, yes.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
Well, it was the last episode that I listened to.
The only episode you listened. You said, "What am I walking into here? I need to hear one episode to get the vibe of this show."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, and he's talking to Kathleen Wynne, so let's see how this goes."
Okay, how did it go?
It was good. It was
Monday.
it was a great interview. I enjoyed it.
It's funny. I got a few notes from people who are like, "I love your show, man, but I'm not listening to Kathleen Wynne." It was like I had the devil herself in the basement, and I'm like, "Okay, you don't have to." A, you don't have to listen to every episode, and B, you don't have to listen to any episode, by the way, and B, you don't have to tell me when you don't listen. Like, this is a thing people like to do when I have somebody like a Kathleen Wynne on. Like, they like to let me know they're skipping the episode, and I just think it's such an unnecessary thing to tell me. Just, why don't you just not listen?
Well, we got a lot of the same stuff around the awards this year when someone won, and they're a podcast that's fairly popular in Canada, and they saw that we had a rainbow logo on our Twitter, and they took a very high offense that we were supporting that cause.
See, again, I know you're open to all Canadian podcasters, but I would have a caveat, like, except for homophobes and racists and assholes.
It wasn't the podcast, it was the listeners of that podcast who chimed in to tell them, like, these guys are
woke.
X, Y, and Z.
You guys have gone woke on those. Was this like a convoy podcast? What was this?
No, and it was a general podcast, but quite a popular one. And I guess,
Is it from out west? Is it like an Alberta-based podcast?
Like,
I'm not sure, actually.
I think they're Ontario, but I'm not sure.
Okay, way up north then maybe. I don't know.
I mean,
we're going to pick on this podcast.
And I'm sure it was just a small portion of their listeners, but you know how they can be very vocal when they want to be, so...
Do you guys know the Sloan song "Coax Me"?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
You know how he sings. It's not the band I hate. It's their fans.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common sentiment on all forms of media.
Right.
Yeah, you always hear about the toxic fan bases of anything that you could like. There's always people that have to be the haters there to rile everything up.
Here's a mind blow for you because I know you didn't listen to this episode because it wasn't the Kathleen Wynne episode, but Chris Murphy was over here fairly recently and he disclosed the inspiration for that line. It's not the band I hate, it's their fans. You'll never guess it, but you can get a guess. You'd be shocked to find out which artist actually inspired that iconic line in Canadian rock and roll history. You want to take a shot at it? You won't get it, but it'd be fun for you to take a guess, both of you.
Yeah, I don't know. Tragically Hip?
That's okay. So that's the most popular guess to that question because it sounds like the Hip, and that is incorrect. John, any guess you want to take on?
Jennifer's the music person out of the two of us, so I'm gonna throw a random one out there, and I don't know, Nardwuar.
See, well, don't think he sings actually, but okay. Kate Bush.
Oh, really?
Okay.
So there's a mind blow for you. What kind of music do you listen to, Jennifer?
Mostly, I guess, alternative rock, a lot of drag music.
What is drag music?
Like drag artists that produce music. So it can be whatever genre. It's just their individual music.
Okay. And when you say alternative rock, are we talking, I know you're a much younger person than I am. So
Probably not.
Okay. Really? Let me take a look again. Okay. I think so. But you can't tell when someone has purple and red hair. It's like, is there any white ones hiding in there? Okay. So what kind of...
Yes,
like,
it's all white.
Okay. Now I feel better here. Do you want to name check some alt rock bands that you dig, Jennifer?
Oh gosh, now you're putting me on the spot.
Well, it's, I'm naturally curious. I think I asked Kathleen Wynne the same question, actually.
Yeah, I guess like I was always into Matthew Good Band or like earlier Mariana's Trench, things like that.
That guy's been on the show. Josh?
Yeah.
He's been on the
Josh Ramsey.
He's been over here. He co-wrote
Call Me Maybe.
Call Me Maybe.
Yeah, Carly Rae Jepsen. That's more John's wheelhouse. He's
Okay.
a pop girly.
Yeah, that's a big jam right there. Okay. So Matthew Goodband. I can't remember if we canceled him or not. Not that I cancel anybody, but
yeah, he was like semi-canceled, but it was kind of like celebrity canceled. Like, he was sleeping with women that he didn't love. And
that's sort of like...
So I don't know if that's cancelable or not, but he's touring again. So
okay.
Yeah, I think he's still off his label, but
pulling an Arcade Fire or something like that. Still selling out on the road here.
Oh, really? Are they?
I feel like they're still going.
Oh, I thought it kind of died out.
No, I feel like, there was a lot of news when Feist left the tour in Europe or something, just so she wasn't on the bill anymore because she was opening. And then I think they still perform live, and they still have legions of fans that come out and see Arcade Fire.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw the one tour people were like, didn't know, and they showed up and they were like, why is it empty here? What is going on? And then they found out.
Right. Okay. So Matthew Good Band. I was a big Matthew Good fan too. I saw them open, I guess it was like 98, and I was watching Pearl Jam at Molson Park in Barrie, and they had a side stage. And Hayden was on the side stage, who, by the way, FOTM Hayden nominated for a Juno Award, so congratulations to Hayden Desser. But on the side stage was Matthew Good. Anyway, there you go.
That's cool.
Pausing for effect there. Okay. All right. So is there anything else, someone like me who is a prolific and passionate podcaster, anything else I should know about podcasting in Canada? Like any tips or tricks, any advice?
Yeah, I think it's just about getting out there with the community. Come to PodCamp in February, meet other podcasters, and you can definitely do a lot of great connections with other people in the industry. Do cross promotions, get them to be able to vote for your podcast in the awards when they come up again. That would be my tip. I don't know if Jennifer has a different one.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. You can certainly also contact the Canadian Podcast Awards to find out how you can get more involved. We do a lot of opportunities for free and low-cost advertising for your podcast. We'll help you connect with other podcasters that might fit within your same genre for cross-promotion or guest appearances, things like that. So we're always open to be a resource for Canadian podcasters. So
you don't need to do it alone, right? Like you don't have to be a silo. What is it? Simon and Garfunkel said no man is an island, I think. So it's, well, they didn't say it originally, but I am a rock. I am an island and a rock. I won't sing for you, but is there's obviously many advantages just simply to like chatting with like-minded content creators, right? Like just even if it's technical tips and tricks or,
Yeah, it definitely is something that you don't need to be isolated to do. There's a lot of people in this country and in Toronto specifically that work in this industry, whether it be as professionals or hobbyists, that definitely there is knowledge to be had and shared between each other.
We hooked up John because Al Grego started a, what is the platform we're on? What is it called? Twitch?
Discord.
No, Discord, okay. It's the only thing I do on Discord. That's how much I love Al Grego. But there is this community, and you hear you'll get podcasters from different parts of this country. Well, I saw one the other day. She was saying that she lost a video, I guess. So she was upset because they recorded a video and then they lost it.
Yeah, that was Dane from the. Are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, you can say the
from
word
the Fuck Buddies podcast. They had a guest on that was a pretty big deal for them, and they didn't get the video file that they wanted from the recording.
So there's a chance to vent, and then you could institute, I don't know, a checklist like a pilot has. A pilot's not just taken off from, Buttonville's closed. Do you know this? I always think, where's a local small place that it says and it's going to take off from? Buttonville's closed. But, you don't just take off. You have a checklist, is there gas in the tank? Is this thing working? And all these things. And you can have your checklist of, am I recording to the right channel? Am I recording the video and all these things? And then you only make the mistake like that once. But you guys don't podcast. You've never made that mistake.
Well, we do a lot of video stuff for the awards and audio production stuff for the awards. So yeah, it's definitely something that we've encountered before, that we've had to re-record stuff. So
All right. Do you guys have in your home? Do you have a I don't know, a junk drawer full of old cables, or maybe you have like phones you haven't touched in 10 years, or
We
any
have
old
two
devices?
entire boxes that are
Yeah.
eating away at me right now. We've
Yeah,
been
sh-
oh
cleaning
my God.
things out, and those boxes are the bane of my existence right now.
She's really at me to go
Okay,
through
Jennifer, I have great news for you. You sitting down?
Oh, I hope there's somewhere I can recycle them.
You're good at this. You want to co-host Toronto Mike with me?
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Well, you get lots of beer and I'll get you vegetarian lasagna
Ooh.
from Palma Pasta. But yes, you go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. You just put in your postal code, and it'll be like, Jen, John, there's a depot like 5-minute walk from you, which is an EPRA accredited place that will properly recycle your electronics, so the chemicals do not end up in our landfill. And you can go to recyclemyelectronics.ca right now and find out where you can drop that junk off. Cool.
Yeah, I'm
Sounds
sure
good.
she'll be on it as soon
Yeah.
as we get home.
Okay. So here, in the last couple of minutes here, unless you have, I mean, I could talk. Do you want to talk about sponsorship? Because I was thinking when you said that how difficult it is to get sponsors, and I have five paying sponsors right now, working on a sixth because there's a spot for a sixth. But so reach out to me if you want to be a part of this. But then I was thinking of the 5 as you were talking there, John, and I was thinking, I think at this point with the 5 we have right now, I think all 5 started as passionate listeners of the podcast. Like, I think they all, if I go down them one by one, I know Great Lakes started that way because Troy is a passionate listener. And then I'm thinking Anthony from Palma Pasta, he started, and those two go back many, many years. I know Brad at Ridley Funeral Home, passionate fan of Toronto Mike. So those 3 have been around a very long time. And I know that that's my relationship with Raymond James started because Chris Cooksey is a passionate fan of Toronto Mike, who will listen to every episode except the Kathleen Wynne episode, because he texted me to say the best part of the episode was when he deleted it off his device. So shout out to Chris Cooksey. And I do believe Cliff Hacking is a massive fan of Toronto Mike, and he is why EPRA and recyclemyelectronics.ca are a big fan of this podcast. And I mentioned Moneris earlier, which does 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months on, 3 months off. I could keep going maybe for a couple more of 3 months on, 3 months off. But Al Grego, who has only missed one Toronto Mike listener experience. We have the 15th on June 27 from 6 to 9 p.m. And you two should come to this. This is my my little event. It's going to be at Great Lakes Brewery in Southern Etobicoke. And you get your first beer on the house thanks to GLB. And Palma Pasta will feed you, and I'll make sure there's vegetarian options for you, Jennifer. And we'll have a great time. You should come to that.
Yeah, we were going to come out to the last one you had, but there was another event that day that we had to attend. So
Okay. I think I read that in the Discord server
Yep,
that
you
Al
sure
put
did.
together. Now it's okay. What was this event? Was it better than mine? What was going on?
I don't know.
it was a
Couldn't have been
podcasting meetup. Yeah, I don't think
You missed it. Stephen Brunn talking about Shohei Ohtani and the plane trip that never was. It was quite the day at Palma's Kitchen. Quite the day. Okay, so I'm going to play this jingle. You ready?
Yep.
439, Pizza Nova. 439, Pizza Nova. With every Pizza Nova, you get real Italian.
Not a paid sponsorship, by the way. Get your pizza at Palma Pasta, damn it. Okay, but Pizza Nova, this jingle, you guys well familiar with this one?
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't something I heard until I moved to the Toronto area. So
Right, they don't get it up in, not Thunder Bay. Where are you from?
Fort Francis is
Fort
near.
Francis.
It's about 4 hours west of Thunder Bay.
That's just like, it's a short bike ride.
you know the end of Yonge Street where they used to say it ended in Rainy River. It's there.
Okay. How far is that from Blind River? Oh, that's a different river. Shout out to Neil Young. Okay, so this jingle is the composition, the creation of a gentleman who was on Tears Are Not Enough, known as Zappacosta. His name is Alfie Zappacosta. This unicorn gem of a man not only created that jingle we just heard, and not only has a line with Del Bello on Tears Are Not Enough by the Northern Lights, but he also has a song on the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. Like this gem of a man, Zappacosta, is coming on Toronto Mic'd. That was a long way to say Alfie Zappacosta, future guest of Toronto Mic'd, and he's the man behind that jingle. So I'm going to do 90 minutes on the the 439-0000 Pizza Nova jingle.
That's exciting. Hopefully you can give you the SOCAN license to play that again.
Oh, I don't need one for that. I think that's free advertising. All right, Jennifer, you excited about Alfie Zappacosta coming on Toronto Mic'd?
I am. That's interesting trivia to know that he was on Dirty Dancing and everything.
He's on the Dirty Dancing. He has a song called, here, want to hear a little bit of it here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It's a bit.
This overload.
Okay.
This song is on the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. We're going to find out how much money did he make having a song on this very popular soundtrack, which produced, I mean, this is not one of the big hits off it, but a lot of big hits came from that Dirty Dancing soundtrack. We're going to get all the answers. I can tell you're excited. I'm excited too. All right, here's the lowest of the low song I promised that will get me deplatformed, and I'll be available everywhere but Spotify at some point, but I'm glad you guys shed some light. What do you think of these? What does Gene Velitis have against you, John? Like, he just doesn't like these awards because they're not nominated?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a little bit of entitlement from being someone who was someone and is now
Look, these are fighting words, Jen. You hear this?
Well,
Gene
you know,
Velitis.
if
Well,
you
don't
want
come for me.
Yeah, you want to come on the internet and send your fans after us. We've got screen grabs of all the things he's said to us. So,
Did it get worse than these are just some bum in his basement? Like, did it get worse than that?
Well, he doxed us as well online.
Oh.
So there's been other things. So, you know.
Okay, well.
And yeah, it's an industry award. So maybe if you're not being recognized within an industry, maybe that's telling you something.
See, I feel like we got to the real talk as I started the closing theme here. Now we're there. Okay, this is why you record for an hour, because this is where it ends up here. So you're telling Gene Velitis, instead of crapping on YouTube passionate podcast boosters, maybe create better content that'll get you nominated.
Or maybe try to make some friends instead of enemies. That's how you're going to get votes. You know, you want to be part of a community and not like exiling yourself.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a self-nomination process as well. Like,
so if you got 0 nominations, it means you weren't that interested to begin with, because you didn't even vote for yourself.
yeah.
Honestly, it's funny because somebody in the live chat just pointed out that, okay, I did an episode of Andy the Barber. Andy the Barber, independent barbershop owner in the city, and it's going, you think it's one way. We did like about the same time, about an hour. And then all of a sudden it took this turn into a different episode, and then it got really interesting. And somebody's having Andy the Barber flashbacks. We're at the hour mark, and then suddenly it's like, let's go.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, we're not going to dwell on it too much, but you brought it up, and we responded.
And like we said before, you know, there's always people that want to put their opinion out there and just have something bad to say to people who are just trying to live their lives and, you know, help other people. So if that's how you want to live your life, then, you know, maybe you're going to reap what you sow.
And that brings us to the end of our 1425th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. So drop the 2 websites again. There's one for the Canadian Podcast Awards. Which one is that?
So there's podcamptoronto.com and CanadianPodcastAwards.ca, which can be reached at canpodawards.ca.
Yeah, it's canpodawards.ca.
canpodawards.ca. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. That's Recycle My Electronics. That's Raymond James Canada. And of course, Ridley Funeral Home. See you very soon. I'll be back with Sean Kelly in the basement. Sean Kelly is a rock and roll guitarist in this country who has played with everyone, including FOTM, Lee Aaron. We're going to have a great chat about his life and music. See you all then.
But the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine, and it won't go away. 'Cause everything is rosy and gray. Well, I've kissed you in France, and I've kissed you in Spain. And I've kissed you in places I better not name. And I've seen the sun go down on Shakra